let's get started.
Tell me. Yeah.
So you grew up, you lived in New Jersey, but very, very briefly, right? I want to go all the way back to the beginning and start with Jersey and then into the booking TV and stuff.
Totally. Yeah. So technically I was born in Hollywood, Florida. And it's usually like a part of the story I wait for later for like the, dramatic effect, but who gives a fuck about that? I'm adopted, found out much, much later in life. So I am technically from Florida, but I was adopted within like the first couple days. I was born and brought back to Asbury Park, New Jersey. Lived there like till I was about, I would say 5 or 6 years old. If you know anything about Asbury Park, New Jersey, you can figure out what my father did for a living. The Sopranos was filmed in Asbury Park. So we had a very abundant lifestyle as a child. Nothing like screamed abnormal to me. It's just what I knew, my mother put me into acting at 6 months old. So like what we were talking about, like, look, if someone had sent me out here when I was 18, do I think I would have had the same career? I don't know. I got lucky. Also, like you were saying, when you get hired, it's like sometimes never even really about you. The advantage I had, especially in the 90s, because people were so fucking mean. Sorry, can I cuss on this podcast? It's seasons. I'm going to be a little bit more respectful because
It's not.
it's not. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that
okay.
We can leave it in. It's chasing heroin and Seasons sponsors some of the episodes, but it's my show that I've had since 2020.
Amazing. Okay.
They're an ad sponsor now. So
got it. And Seasons is the very first treatment facility I ever worked at, so it's so special for me, and I'm happy to.
It is
that
really
story
cool.
Too.
Yeah.
It's an odd story, but Seasons as the facility to me is so special. I'll never forget. Your first place you ever work.
And I love that because that is an organic situation and you can attest to this so my audience knows. I didn't know you worked there.
You had no idea.
So it wasn't like an ad on purpose. And then you said you did. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we could talk about it or not. And you're like, oh, I had a wonderful, I know you didn't even know that's what they sponsored the show. So like you organically, genuinely just liked working there. We'll talk about that later, but it's just like this natural ad for the treatment center. I didn't even need to have that happen.
Ad for Seasons. Yeah, well, really bang for the buck. But yeah, no, I do love Seasons. But yeah, no, that's not how we met. It was because of Jenna, really.
Because of Jenna. Yep.
Yeah. And I think organically, like, I just started kind of following all you guys, vice versa. And then some, it's the sober girls group. So they're so cute. But, you guys are all so busy. So I'm not going to be able to connect strongly with everyone, So,
right.
But you and I had a really cool connection. Just
totally.
Jump. I think it's, we're the same age. We've experienced, the same eras. And sometimes it's hard in life when you're talking to someone who hasn't experienced the same era as you, especially. But it is. So anyway, I'll go back. Okay, let me go back. So Asbury Park, all the things. My dad's doing what he's doing. We're a pretty prominent family in that town. My mother decides to move us out to Manhattan when I was about 5 years old. At this point, I had already done like 50 national commercials. I was a Gerber baby. I had done my first film with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. I was just about to do my second film with Woody Allen. It was called Crimes and Misdemeanors. And, we were taking off. We were doing the damn thing. And then I got a movie called Little Monsters with Fred Savage and Ben Savage, which just is like a full circle later on. And like a 30-second part. Like, this is, okay, I'll do this just in case there's like a Little Monsters fan out there. This was my whole part. Ready? That's it. That was it. 10 seconds. People still bring that photo to photograph lining. They love it. Yeah, I don't know.
That's great.
So I did that, and then Manhattan, and I was born for Broadway, minus the fact that I can't dance.
Yeah, you were. You're a theater kid. In another lifetime, you're a theater kid.
100%. Like, I'm like right now obsessed with Whitney Lovett's journey.
Me too.
I know. Real okay, great.
Yes.
It just
can
like,
you even believe?
In me.
Yeah. Can you even believe what that bitch has done?
No.
And listen, she was right. But do you know how much like grit and determination and talent it takes to go from not only was she on the reality show, she was the villain. Yeah, everybody hated her with that short haircut.
Oh God.
She was such a mom. She was just like this mom, and then
her
to go
her TikTok
in that direction,
so juvenile. And
she's just leaving them behind. She's left them behind. She doesn't need them anymore.
She does not care either. You
It's
know,
crazy.
and also look at a certain point in life, like, I mean, with how wonderful her husband is. And like, look, we only see what they present to us. So this whole podcast is like a Secret Lives of Mormon Wives podcast now. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so okay, I'll explain why I'm obsessed with her journey a little later on. It kind of like really ties into the podcast and stuff. But yeah, so they brought, she brought me out to Manhattan, rolled the dice and said, all right, let's see if this kid can do this. And I could, and I just figured it out every time I was presented with a new challenge as a child even. And I did end up doing Broadway, even though I couldn't dance. So I did Annie off Broadway for 3.5 years and danced my little ass off. And I was a pretty decent dancer back then, I guess. And then it happened and I got Les Miserables. And it was like, wow, we've done it. We've cracked. This is the big break. So I did 2 performances of Les Miserables as young Cosette. And then we got the call from my manager that I had basically because I was flying out to LA every pilot season. So we got the call from my manager that it was down to me and Brittany Murphy actually for this show called Billy, which was shooting in LA. It was starring Billy Connolly, who was currently at that time on a show called Head of the Class. Big show on TGIF, and he was a huge comic, still is. And yeah, it was a new show. I was going to be starring Billy, Johnny Galecki, who went on to do Roseanne and everything else. It was his very first show, and I ended up getting the role. So we did the one thing you just don't do in the Broadway world, and we broke a Broadway contract, which it blacklists you. I'm sure now they've forgotten, but yeah, no, if you break a Broadway contract, they'll blacklist you from the Broadway world. But it was television, and my mom said, "Hey,
I would have done that too."
Yeah, I mean, it was a brand new ABC a sitcom. It was set to go all the way. So we packed it all up, and at the same time, my father actually was getting into a lot of trouble with the law in Asbury Park. So at this exact same time, it was just the weirdest timing. He was being indicted on 3 RICO charges, and he was actually sentenced to 10 years of probation to the state of New York, meaning he just could not. It wasn't quite house arrest. It was state arrest. Just stay here in New Jersey. Don't go anywhere. We move out to LA, start filming the show, all of the things. I'm living at Oakwood Apartments. Shout out Oakwood. We did a lot of partying there. And then after that, we moved to a place called Park Point in Burbank. These were just all really legendary child actor places at that time. And
what ages are we talking during Billy and bumping around into these different areas?
This is all during Billy. And then the next thing I know, my mom says, okay, your father's moving out to California. And I was young, so they didn't tell me everything, but I knew he was in trouble for something. I wasn't an idiot. So I am currently 44 years old at that time when all of this was happening. So we had been in LA for a minute. Billy was already over. Yeah, I must have been 11 now, 10 or 11 now. Okay. We're at the place in Burbank. And my mom is just desperate to get us into Beverly Hills or Bel Air or something. She's that person. Come on, Natanya, we gotta, next stop, Beverly Hills. And it's just it was that kind of a pressure, I suppose. So right before he comes out to live with us in LA, she says, I don't want you to be scared, but he's had a lot of surgery done. I said, okay. And so she said he wanted to look younger and just kind of spruce up. We love our plastic surgery in this family. Well, it's not a big deal, Natanya. Don't act weird about it. Don't make him feel weird. And I said, well, what does he look like? She's like, I don't know, but it's kind of feminine, I guess. I said, oh, okay. What? She's like, it's just a facelift. Don't worry about it. He just got his eyes done. It's just a facelift. But he's like, but it's feminine. I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't know what that what? I'm like 12, you know? Like, just let me be on TV and leave me alone. So we go to pick my dad up at the airport, and she's right. He's very, very feminine looking. Looks like an entirely different person, had complete reconstructive surgery. Okay? You could probably get where I'm going a little bit with this. So it's very rare to get probation transferred like that on those types of charges. He was in big trouble. He was in organized crime and he was in big trouble. So he comes out and I saw him and I was like, I mean, I was scared, It was a really terrifying situation for a young girl who had no idea all I knew was that these people did not feel like they belonged to me. Do you know what I mean? I always felt like my spirit knew that a lot of the stuff that was going on was sinister and dark and just not me. So that happened.
So he's on the run and he had plastic surgery so that he couldn't
Well,
be identified. That's what happened.
what I think happened is he cut a deal. And
Okay.
that's what I think happened is he cut a deal and went on the run, but not from the police.
But not from the law, from the other people. I understand. Okay.
Correct. Yes. So, listen, I'll just tell this part of the story now. My dad left when I was around 14, 15, stole a little of my money. That's a running theme throughout my life with my parents, unfortunately. And then the story that was told to me from my mother, and we just don't know if it's true or not, is that he took about $100,000 and went to Thailand and transitioned into a woman. And that was it. She wouldn't allow me to see him ever again. And I have been an advocate in the queer community since I'm like fucking 13 years old. I have identified with the queer community more than the Homo sapien community, truly, because there's so much less fucking judgment. And it's just, for a kid like me who grew up with no siblings, like no grandparents, no aunts, no uncles, no nothing. And then at a certain point, no father. And then just me and a very, very, very sick mother. I was looking to find family wherever I was going. I was trying to make a home for myself wherever it was. Like, you could put me in the corner of a room and give me like a box of crayons and I will somehow make it feel like a home for myself. And it's just an ability I've always had. It's not necessarily the best at all times because I'm a masterclass isolator because of it. Yeah, I knew things were very wrong from a very early age. So after Billy ends, so I do Billy for 13 episodes. So it's about a year, and we are popping. We're like on the side of the WB, like if you drive up Barham and you see Warner Brothers and it has all those huge posters of all the current shows, like we're everywhere. We're on like Billboard, Sunset Boulevard, all the things. And then Billy goes on a little press tour, on a late night press tour, and just says some really fucking weird racist shit, to be honest. And
really? I didn't know that.
And
the show got canceled?
We got pulled. I don't even from my recollection, I don't even think they played all 13 episodes. I think maybe they pulled it at like 11. They were just like, fuck you guys, and yeah, I support that, sure. So that was done, and that was my first taste of like how harsh Hollywood could be and just how quick it moves. It was my very first show. It was Johnny Galecki's very first show. We looked at each other and he was like, good luck, kid. He was 17. He was 17, new in town, beautiful young boy. He was about to be on Roseanne and just take over, and we just both kind of, and the other kid on the show, Clara Bryant, we all just kind of looked at each other like, nice to meet you and best of luck, and that's when the fucking craziness of Los Angeles started for me. And my mom said, what do you want to do? You want to go back to New York and see if we can make our way back into Broadway? Or you want to stay here? I said, I don't know. I mean, let's give it a year here. I mean, I had no friends. I had like pops of friends throughout my life, but I was working so much always that it was like hard to maintain. I would have a new best friend all the time because it was hard to maintain them, because I was always on the move. So by this point, I said, let's give it a year. In that year, I did a couple movies. I did a bunch of guest spots. I did like Step by Step, Viper. I was on everything in that year. And then at the very end of the year, this audition comes up for The Secret World of Alex Mack. So I go in for the title character and I go all the way down to the end, like screen test everything for the role of Alex, like over and over. And I'm chemistry testing. And at this point, it looks like this is my part, you know, because now people are coming to chemistry test with me. And then last minute, someone else gets it. I don't get it. They filmed the whole pilot. We think it's done. Then we get a call like 3 months later and they recast the whole show. So they aired the pilot, I believe, and probably did like back in the day they used to do those like market research tests and stuff to see if they like, do you like this character? Do you like this? I mean, it was savage. So if someone didn't like your character, they might pull you off a show just because 10 people in a, you know, market research group said, oh, I don't like that girl with red hair. I mean, just crazy. You just never know. So yeah, okay. So I don't get Alex Mack. It gets recast. I go back. Same thing happens. All the way for Alex. Don't get it. Then they bring me back for the sister. All the way down for the sister. Don't get it. It's done. Then they call like a month later and they told my agent, they said, look, we love Natanya so much. We wrote a part just for her. It's only 3 episodes, but it's hers. All she has to do is come down and read it on tape. So we said, okay, here we go. We basically know this route better than we know how to get home at this point. And so I go down to the same little casting studio that I'd been in 10 million times in Valencia. I walk in like thinking, yeah, okay, I'm here to read for Robin, even though it's my part, everyone. And there's like 50 girls there. I was like, you motherfucker. Like at this point, you can have it. I don't want to take it. So I go in, and that's where Robin was born. Robin was born out of this like sarcastic, I don't give a fuck about this role anymore, you guys. This has been enough, you know, kind of like dark, edgy, moody alt, which I had no idea in that moment when I made that choice as a young actor to play the role that way, that, you know, I would eventually 5 years later, you know, and especially now, 30 years later, get dubbed as like the original alt emo goth girl of Nickelodeon, which, I mean, I've had a lot of titles in my life, I'll tell you, but that one, that's got to be top 3, you know, that's the top 3 title. So obviously I got that part, went and shot Alex Mack, did my 3 episodes, loved it. The whole cast, even though I knew I wasn't there for the whole time, which kind of made me sad, you know, we all got so close so fast. And then when I was done with my 3rd episode and we wrapped, usually when a character wraps either for like forever or just for the day, if it's just for the day, they'll be like, okay, guys, that's a wrap on Natanya Ross. But when it's like a finale wrap, you know, they'll make a little thing for you and be like, okay, guys, that's it for Natanya Ross, like season finale. Thank you so much for being part of our show. And everyone's clapping. And I'm like, you know, I'm like, thank you for at least giving me this. This is so nice. And then the creator steps in. He's like, just kidding. We want you as a series regular. I was like, I know. And everyone was like, oh, it was like this thing they planned for me. Yeah, it was really special. So yeah, they offered me, you know, the series regular role of Robin Russo, which was Alex's best friend, and I believe the comic relief of the show. And, you know, listen, we were smart enough as a team back then, and that's a publicist, a manager, an agent, a mother, a actress, a this, a that, business manager. We were smart enough back then, I guess, as a team to like make sure contractually we wrote my contracts on Alex Mack, since I was not the namesake of the show, that I could be written out of any episode I wanted to if I booked something else. And I could always come right back, which I did, which is why a lot of people were like, why didn't the other people on the show do all that other stuff? I don't know. I wrote different contracts, you know? So even obviously in my hiatus, I tried to work as much as possible, but they would write me out every so often. Like I got an episode of ER, had to go do it, you know, got an episode of Boy Meets World, had to go do that one, ended up sticking with me for 30 years, you know, had to go do it. I did a couple movies. So we were smart about that, but the majority of my time was spent on Alex Mack. I think I missed like 10 episodes total. So it's like 2 a season. It's like ridiculous, you know? We did like 26 episodes a season. So I'm in the whole thing. And it's, you know, it's my very favorite role I've ever played, for sure. And a couple years in, we really knew we had something big, and was the 90s, and we weren't able to go to malls anymore, and that's when when me and Darius, we would hang out every week. We were inseparable. And I remember one time we went to like a restaurant or something, and we got swarmed, and we were like, yo, this is crazy, you know? So that's the Alex Mack story and how we ended up staying in Los Angeles. So now I've caught you up from birth
Okay.
to now. And now I'm
So-
like 14.
Okay. So how long does Alex Mack last? 5 years, you said, of filming?
I ended when I was 17.
Okay. Okay.
17? Yes. Like 11 to, I spent my entire puberty. Like I grew up on television, you know, and I'm grateful for that. Oh my gosh, I am grateful for that. The shocking difference of what I look like from season 1 to the end is wild. I mean, you see a little tiny girl grow up. It's special.
Yeah, that was very cool. So as you're filming that, what does your personal life look like in terms of going to school with your mother, and when do drugs enter the picture?
Drugs were always prevalent because they were in my home, not necessarily being used by me, obviously. My father was a gnarly alcoholic, to the point where I would go into my mom's room at night and ask if I thought he was going to get violent with us at night in our sleep. Not like sexually, I just mean like I always thought he was going to kill her for some reason, or like hurt her, because it was like sloppy drunk, like like this. But one time he pulled me aside and he said, keep your eyes open, Natanya. You have no idea what she's doing to you behind your back. I said, what? And he was tipsy, and like I was used to him being really negative towards her. I never knew why. I do now, and I like try and talk to him in my own ways. But and I'm emotional just thinking about it. But God, the torture he must have gone through just having to deal with her for so long, and also knowing that he was part of potentially affecting a child's psyche in a way that could maybe lead them to drugs and alcohol later on in life. He was looking at a child that he knew was adopted, that he knew that the child did not know.
Did not know, right?
He knew the reasons why I was adopted. She wanted to make a baby famous.
Okay.
Why
so
else?
when he
She requested a baby with red hair and blue eyes. So
That's so wild. So when he said you have no idea what she's doing to you, he meant
I
being
asked.
adopted?
No, well, I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, how the fuck do you think she buys all this shit? How do you think she's getting her hair done every week and her nails done and buying all this stuff? But we're living like paupers. I mean, we weren't, She finally got us to Beverly Hills adjacent, but she would never let me say it. And I would when I would get really mad at her, I'd be like, adjacent, don't you forget it.
Like Beverlywood or something?
Yeah, we were on, yeah, exactly. We were on freaking, oh my God, it'll come to me perimenopause. I'll tell you the street and you'll know. It's like a
Like
block.
Robertson and National.
Exactly. It was like, no, it was like 2 blocks from Beverly Hills for real, but she couldn't quite get us in. But she was used to being with a multi-millionaire. My father, you have to remember, gave her a $2 million mansion in Asbury Park, and in Asbury Park, that's like a $20 million mansion. She was used to coming from money. She stole my father from another family. He was married. He had a kid. She was not a good person. She went for what she wanted, and what she wanted was money. And she wanted a little best friend that would never leave her.
Yeah.
And so she tried to do both of those things in me. So when he said to me that, I asked him, what do you mean? And he said, she's robbing you fucking blind. I said, but I'm 14 and I don't really know what this means. And he's drunk. And I have more of a loyalty to my mother, I suppose, at this point, even though I was definitely a daddy's girl. He was the first one that wanted to take me to go like dress shopping and stuff when I had premieres and red carpets. I didn't understand it then. Obviously, things make sense as we unpack them in our adults' lives. But we had that special bond because he was like down. He's like, yeah, I'm down to go dress shopping. Let's do it. And I would come out and he's like, no, 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 try that one. No, okay, put it with this shoe. And he was like in his happiest, and I'm going to get emotional. Sorry. All you fuckers have been getting so much shit out of me. All of you guys. Oh, God.
Woo! Listen, it's you that has to be vulnerable enough to want to open up. We can hold the space for you, but
yeah, I'm an open book. I mean, gosh, I really am, and I don't mind sharing any of this. It's just, even when I talk about it, I'm like, wow, it's a lot. I need to take a fucking nap. I need a nap. I might take one after this, honestly. Like, who's gonna stop?
Well,
yeah, I wish we could take it together. Don't you?
I know, me too.
Just like put on like a little murder documentary and fall asleep together. That would be the best. Where are you? Nashville? It would take me a while to get to.
No, I'm in San Diego, my friend.
Well, it would really only take me 2 hours, but
take you a couple hours.
Maybe I'll try a day. I gotta figure out how to see you. Okay, remind me where are you at? I know I get off track.
Your dad.
So my dad,
you emotional because he would
yes,
take you to
Yes, the dress shopping. I was getting emotional because he really loved me. There was no doubt about it, and I technically wasn't his. And like he knew that. I didn't know that. He knew that I didn't know that. He knew that was the biggest family secret. That was the one thing. And what I found out later on, and here was the promise, is that he swore to my mother that he would never tell me I was adopted if she swore to him that she would never tell me that he was transgender. And because she knew the whole time when they first started dating. And I say this because these are the terms they used in the 90s, she said he was a cross-dresser his whole life. Right. And I don't know that she would have cared to even be appropriate in her language, but I certainly would have. And she knew that about him. She told me later on in life, she said, yeah, I mean, he was doing that from the second we started dating. And I told him that if he wanted to be with me, he needed to provided me this kind of a lifestyle. She lied to me my whole life. She said I wanted to have a baby, so I had you right away. And he needed to keep a full beard on at all times, so I knew he wasn't dressing as a woman, because you can't really do that very well with a full beard.
Okay.
So that was their agreement. And even later on in life, this is how wicked she was. Even later on in life, I figured out, like, when they were fighting really, really bad, she would look at him and she would be like, Josephina, careful. And I thought it was just a funny thing. So, like, as a little kid, I would be like, Josephina, Joseph. I mean, I feel like, God, it hurts my heart so much. It must have just made him so sick, and that was their, trauma bond, whatever the fuck it was, their trauma blackmail bond. And eventually he got sick of it and he left. And I don't blame him for that. What I blame him for is leaving me alone with her. Anyway, so then then Dad's gone, and that's that. Yeah.
So how does Billy Mack start to progress in terms of, again, your life personally? And then when do you, I know you said drugs were in the home, not necessarily yours. When do you start like using, partying?
Yeah.
What does that start to look like for you?
Totally. So the first time I drank was with my dad. He used to take me I thought it was so cool, but and in the 90s, I guess it was cool. I don't know. Parents were different back then, but he took me to get alcohol for the first time. It was like one of those bags of frozen alcohol that you have to like blend up. We drank it together. It was kind of weird, and that really kind of started everything. My best friend at that time, we were really, really well known at this time, me and her both. We were both doing movies together back to back, and we were best friends, so we started smoking cigarettes together, and then some heavier stuff came in, and then, and now I'm like 15, and Alex Mack is the #1 show in the world, year after year after year, and I'm like,
crazy,
and we're winning like Kids' Choice Awards every year, and we're this, and I mean, it's just crazy. Now at this point, you cannot go out anymore. So Oakwood Apartments became a refuge for every child actor, as famous as, like, we had Bone Thugs and Harmony. We had, just as famous as that, to like just, kids auditioning. And then there was like a circle of kids in the 90s that were pretty well known and pretty famous, and we clung on to each other for dear life. And instead of going out and well, we definitely went out and did a lot of stuff, but we primarily all hung out at Oakwood, and all of us had different little apartments, and it was just party at this place tonight, party at that place tonight. And it became like Lord of the Flies, and it was just crazy. I mean, it was every young name somebody and I'll be like, yes, 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 yes. We were all there. Yes, there was like 100 of us, you know? So that's when everything, and as a redhead too, you have to remember the 90s were brutal. Kids were brutal. I was actually pulled out of public school. I only went for 1 year because I was getting beat up a lot. I got jumped a couple times by like 3 girls at once because I'm a ginger, but really I think it's because kids don't understand that they're watching you on television on Friday night and then you're in front of them on Monday. And what kids don't understand, they make fun of, and same for adults, really, same for adults. And when you misunderstand somebody or somebody doesn't make sense to you and you're not a person who's met yourself yet, you will gossip, talk shit, or make fun of the other person. And as a redhead, oh my God, and like I was very pale and I dye my hair now. It was orange. I mean, and my mother used to bleach my skin to make me even whiter. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I always make the joke, redheads, like, you just don't know if they're going to be like super hot or not till they're about 14, 15. You got to let them simmer. And there's no like gray area. It's either like yes or no.
Yeah.
I like to think I landed in the yes category.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
And I know that because all of a sudden, all the young, beautiful, famous boys all were paying attention to Natanya now. So that's really when I first got that felt like my first drug of choice.
Okay. Attention. Male attention.
Yes. Male attention. At first, it was a desperation to be hot because my entire career I had been like the weird girl or like the drug addict, the edgy girl, the friend.
The worst phrase ever. A character actor.
A character actor, which
not a lead,
automatically insinuates
a character
that
actor.
You're not good looking, right?
Right.
And I actually was not a character actor. I was literally one of like 5 redheads in the 90s. Like tell me more than 5. You can't. You will not be able to. I promise you. So there was a handful of us, but I was like in the younger category. So you had some redheads that were like smoking fucking hot and they were doing these hot, beautiful girl roles, but I was not that age. I was younger, but I turned 14 and shit started happening and I looked very different overnight. So it's really interesting actually if you go watch, like if you just look at what I look like in season 1 of Alex Mack and then at the end it's like a whole other thing. Is pretty crazy. So yeah, so I'm 15 and we're all at Oakwood and like any young boy in Hollywood famous at that time you can think of, they were there. Same with the girls. We were all there. We were incestuous. We were all best friends. There was different groups, different cliques. But at the end of the day, we were like, and even if we weren't like directly in each other's friend circles or whatever, if we saw each other out at a club, if someone was getting messed with, it was like an automatic protection. It was a vibe in the 90s. I gotta say, it was a vibe, and I was a little social butterfly. So I was part of every social group. I was part of all of them, and I loved that. And yes, there was drugs and alcohol involved.
Right. That so because obviously some people party and it doesn't end their careers. And some people take it to hell like I did, like you did. Because at some point your drug use really escalates. What are the first things that do and that you start to use? And when do the wheels start to fall off of your drug use? Like what is the actual first like harder substance that you use? How does the wheels start to fall off?
So the wheels start to fall off, I would say probably like last season of Alex Mack. I was about 16 years old, almost 16 years old, and I didn't have a car yet or anything like that. My best friend Jenna she was an extra on the show. Like, we were inseparable. And thinking back at that time, I thank God for that. And I almost wonder if it might have saved my life a little bit, because at this time, my mother had remarried. There was no technical marriage, but to a man who was desperate to be an actor. His previous girlfriend had been Corey Feldman's mom. I immediately said, "Mom, you don't see a trend here? This guy is obsessed with becoming famous, and he's just moving from like child star's mom to what are you doing?" And I knew he was bad from the second I laid eyes on him. And I feel that I'm very intuitive. You follow me on social media, you know that all I talk about is fucking crystals and manifestation and journals and all the things. And but I'm claiming it. I feel I have special gifts in the sense that I can really suss somebody out pretty quickly. Don't get me wrong, I have been duped. I have an ex-husband, so I have been duped. But so met this guy. I just knew he was awful. He moved in with us really quickly. I was very uncomfortable with that. I was a 16-year-old girl, and I was finally hot. And all the boys at that, they were finally interested. And like the boys that I was in love with, like for years and I lusted over, finally wanted to talk to me. And I was drinking and I was partying and I was smoking a lot of weed, but it was not that abnormal for what kids at that age do. So when this man moved into our house, he was very physically aggressive, verbally aggressive. And the very first Thanksgiving we did like a friends thing, and we invited a lot of my friends over. And I remember him and my mom got so drunk that at one point he was like yelling across the table at me, like, "You're the next Courtney Love. You're a piece of shit. You're so out of control. Look at all your friends and company you keep." And we were all like, "What the fuck?" Listen, not for nothing, my mother at times protected me, and she said, "Don't ever fucking talk about her like that, blah, 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 blah." And it was just an absolute nightmare. And I remember thinking, I'm cooked. I'm fucked. So we move out of that apartment with Roger and my mother to an apartment on Haywood. So we live now on the Sunset Strip. And now I can walk to Dublin's. Now I can walk to the coffee house, which at that time it was owned by Johnny Galecki and Leonardo DiCaprio and one other, probably Tobey Maguire. And it was like the best place on Sunset Boulevard. And so basically when the hard drugs came in was right around this time, and I discovered ecstasy.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, okay, now we're talking, because, it provided me 8 hours of not having to think about me. I also often say that I believe my first drug of choice was acting, because I really got to go somewhere every day and not have to be myself. That Alex Mack, it kept me safe. I try to have dinner once a year with the creator of the show, but we talk all the time. And I, as an adult, finally got to tell him my story and tell him, yeah, like, you didn't know. But when I was coming home, there were police there because Roger pulled a gun out again at my mom. And, he was verbally sexually abusing me, saying things like, if you were 10 years younger, I would fuck the shit out of you. Um, Things like, "Oh God, I wish you were your mother. Oh, if I could trade you for your mother, I would." Stuff like that. I had a boyfriend at the time, my first love, Ben Gould. He was on a show called Saved by the Bell, The New Class. He was very protective of me, as were all of my friends. Like my other best friend at that time was Shane West. I don't know if you know who that is, and from a Walk to Remember. All of the guys, all the guys were doing stuff, and they were all felt very protective, but no one really knew what to do. And then I kind of escaped all of that somehow. So now Alex Mack is over, and I'm like, I'm not bound to Nickelodeon anymore. Nickelodeon has like ethics clauses and stuff like that. Like, you have to behave correctly when you're, you're representing Nickelodeon. And I mean, I got clipped all the time smoking cigarettes places I shouldn't have been. And back then it was National Enquirer. It was crazy. So after Alex Mack, that's kind of when things went off the rails because there was no more structure. But I was working, I was doing a lot of stuff. Then I turned 18, so I can drive myself to set now, and I don't need my mother. I remember I did 90210, I did Boston Public, I did a few things, and then I just like, I couldn't hang anymore. So then,
What do you mean you couldn't hang anymore? And do you move out of your house with
yeah,
your mother? Do you move out at
right.
some point?
Yes. So my mother got rid of this man somehow. And I was going to move into my very first apartment ever. I was so excited, all of the things. Now, mind you, at this point, I thought I had like millions of dollars because I knew how much money I made throughout my entire career. So I'm making very grandiose plans. I was like, let's just pay the whole rent like for a whole year ahead of time. So, blah, 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 like, me in case I forget to, whatever. And my mom started acting weird. And she was like, that's not, no, that's not, I'll handle it. I was like, no, you won't. What are you talking about? Give me my money. I move into this apartment. And like a day later, she calls me sobbing, saying that the ex-stepdad like beat the shit out of her basically, and she had nowhere to go, she didn't know what to do, and she needed to move in with me. I don't even know if the story was true. If I'm telling you, I have no idea, but I like, what am I gonna do? I was like, okay. So she moved in, and I was able to stand it for like 2 weeks. And then she was so sick at this point, drinking so much, so controlling, and I think she was terrified because she knew her days were numbered, and I was about to figure out any moment that she really did, that my father was right. She really did rob me blind. There was nothing, or at least wherever it wasn't available to me. That's for
How
sure.
did you find out it was all gone? What happened?
So when I turned 18, she only gave me my Coogan account, which had like $100,000 in it, which is a lot of money. It lasted me about a year. That's the year I went crazy. I paid for everything. I'm like, oh, we want to do ecstasy. Great. I'll pay for it tonight. I was that girl because money had been such an ugly thing my whole life that I just like, I don't care. You don't have, I'll buy it for you. No, you don't have to pay. No, I don't want to talk about it. It's just money. It's stupid. It doesn't matter. Everyone should be happy, right? Like that's how I always was. You'll blow through $100,000 very quickly that way. And that is the year I learned about every possible drug there was: methamphetamine, ecstasy, cocaine, mushrooms, you name it. At this point now, now I'm 18 and I'm out. I moved out from my mom. I found another place to live with some friends, actually. And we just ended up ironically moving right underneath some of our other acting best friends. It was the weirdest thing. So like it was Chris Evans and I'm trying to think of the other people at the time that you might know, but that were working. It was really just like me and Chris, I guess, but it was a lot, and Blake Heron. It was a lot of up and coming huge stars. Chris was like on the precipice of becoming Captain America. Like stuff was happening, so we moved into this apartment, and finally I was like, oh, this is it. I'm an adult. I'm having the adult experience. All my best friends live upstairs. I'm living with two best friends. It was sick, and you feel so safe, so supported in that friendship dynamic. And remember, I'm a kid who's always trying to find a home in any social circle that I'm in. And it felt safe to do all of these kinds of things with these people. They were much more advanced than I was, and I was ready. I was ready to learn, And that was
So you
that.
start smoking meth?
No, I mean it was party drugs, We were
Okay,
doing
so we're still talking in the
ecstasy.
party drug area. Ecstasy,
Yeah,
cocaine.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was, but it was just very extreme. It was very, very extreme. And then I was introduced to a boy who was a little bit older than me and was very punk rock, and I'd never seen anything like it. All of the boys with like the floppy hair over in the 90s, that just the pretty, pretty boys on the covers of the magazines, that was my type. Not like, not like punk rock at all. And I saw this guy and I was like, he's so hot. What? he had no interest in me at all. And that pissed me off. And I was like, what? And I like chased him all around Hollywood for weeks and weeks, and then the rest is history. We fell in love, and that was that. And that's when I was introduced to heroin. And so that's when everything changes. And within like a year, no more friends, no more apartment, no more anything. I've moved in with him at this point. Conversation or whatever with my mother, very limited at this point. I mean, I'm like, where are my fucking residual checks? I haven't eaten in 2 days. Like, what are you doing? Now I'm catching on. I'm like, can you just send me the rest of the money? Like, I can deal with it. I'm 20, no, no, Natan, you're gonna kill yourself. I mean, every excuse under the book. And I said, I just called SAG, and they told me 10 different checks. I know all the amounts. I know what episode it was for. And you're saying they just didn't send it? They're lying to me? So this is the kind of gaslighting I dealt with my entire life,
You had no legal recourse to get that money?
absolutely I did, and I still do.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But
Yeah,
at that time,
I won't ever do it. No,
okay.
I won't ever do it.
Well, and also I did hear you say too on Against All Odds, and I think on Dopey too, that she had incorporated you though, and so she was able to keep a lot of the money legally. Actually,
Legally, yeah.
So to some extent, you didn't have recourse, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes and no, because it is illegal to open a company like that under false pretense. So by the time I'm on heroin and like strung out, my mom's like, okay, she wants nothing. I mean, I can't do anything for her anymore. I can't make money. I'm
What
sick.
happens with, so are you, do you progress? Is he shooting heroin and right away you start shooting heroin? And then what starts to happen with acting as you get more and more strung out?
I mean, it didn't start with heroin, it started with Oxycontin. And it was everything I had been looking for my whole life. It was the breath of air that I had needed literally since probably the moment when my father pulled me aside and said, "She's robbing you blind. Keep your eyes open." I hadn't really been able to breathe properly since that moment. And the second an opiate hit my system, I was like, okay. And it was a long enough breath for me to not have to be Natanya anymore, And I didn't have to escape behind a character to do so. I could be Natanya without being Natanya. And I fell in love with it as hard as I had fallen in love with acting. And that's a hard position to be in. I chose heroin. And I say that because it's very important to me, actually. And it doesn't come from a place of ego or pride. It comes from a place of really wanting to educate. But I did not stop acting because I stopped booking roles. I was booking literally up until the last second, which I'll tell you about right now. I stopped working because I was strung out. I could not work. I was not making it anywhere, So the way it kind of all ended, the acting stuff, and my boyfriend at the time, he was on a very famous TV show, so he was doing autograph signings, and that was keeping us alive. His residual checks, every so often, if I was able to get a residual check or something. So I went to my very last audition. I had auditioned like 4 times. I actually did show up on ecstasy most of those times, like on a come down of ecstasy, and I still fucking nailed it. See, that's the thing. And like, listen, I think people are afraid to claim their talents out loud because they think it makes them sound arrogant or cocky. I don't give a fuck, really. I know I'm a good actor. I know how talented I am. There's nothing wrong with knowing that. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Isn't that the goal, you guys? Don't we want to get to a place where we feel so confident about something in our lives that we can say, no, I know I'm a born entertainer, But just because I know that doesn't take away from the fact that I also have this, and this category of shit to work on. You know what I mean? All it means is that I know what my talent is. It doesn't mean I discard, having to be in, recovery and mental health recovery and all of that stuff. So I just want to put that out there. So, okay, where are we now? We are
8 Mile.
Which
you haven't said yet, but I know is your last audition.
You know the story. So
before we get there though, how does Oxycontin become heroin?
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so Oxycontin, God, it was just such a good feeling. And he shot it and he wouldn't let me. And I was like, no, you're gonna fucking let me. And then one morning he like kind of came home crying. So I would wake up every morning and he was gone, which was a big trigger for me. And he would come home like a couple hours later with some excuse. Oh, I had to go to the post office. I had to do this. I had to do that. He was going downtown every morning and getting dope before I woke up. And he was like hiding it from me. And finally he told me about it. And
That he had switched to heroin at some point.
I think it had been there for a minute, and yeah. I said, okay, well, I want to do it too. And he said, no, absolutely not. I said, well, then I'll go get it myself. And, he knew I would go try and he knew I'd probably get killed. So, and listen, I want to say this also because when I tell this story, all these people are like, fuck that guy, blah, blah, blah. But it's really not. And I won't say his name, but it's not him. I made the decision myself. And also, we were in love, or what we thought was love, and, that fucking chemical induced love. And he knew I was a wild child, and he knew I would try and shoot up on my own. He knew I would hurt myself. He knew I would go down to the wrong area. The dealer was on 3rd and Alvarado. If you're from LA, that's a fucking rough area. It's right next to Needle Park, Hancock Park. So anyway, long story short, finally convinced him. And the second that first shot hit my bloodstream, yeah, I was a goner.
That's a wrap on Natanya Ross.
And that's a wrap on Natanya Ross. And
okay,
that was a big old wrap on Natanya. So, but for whatever reason, I still was maintaining making it to some auditions. So the movie is 8 Mile. I maybe at that time was the biggest Eminem fan of all time. I mean, every fucking girl says that. I know. And I made it all the way down to the very last audition before you were going to do a chemistry read with Eminem. I said this on the Against All Odds podcast, and it was like so many comments like, she's fucking lying. Nobody would ever screen test.
Yes, you do.
Well, also,
yes,
I wasn't a nobody.
That is what you do. Oh,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
I was like,
dude,
19 at this point. People
the
are
number
just,
of
can't read
men
comments.
in the
People are
comments.
so,
yeah. Oh, and it's like, okay, so I just interviewed this guy, Owen, who had a RICO case brought against him. He was sentenced to 23 years. He was working for the cartel. He just got out a year ago. We post this clip. Just won a documentary. It won an Emmy, the docuseries.
What is it?
It's called Cocaine Quarterback. He's our age.
Yeah.
He actually. Oh, I interviewed Owen at Seasons last time. So that is
I gotta watch that app.
Yeah,
That's
that's a real story. Fucking obviously, they interviewed the FBI agents who arrested him, the Australian authorities. Like, it's a known story. In my comments, Natanya, go look at that reel. It is insane, and it's all men, and they're like, bullshit, this guy's a fucking liar, that would never happen. And I'm like, I'm like, just because you have not experienced something doesn't mean it's not real. And it's the audacity of men. You know what I mean? Like,
I know
women say rude things too in the comments, I guess. But the ones that are like, oh, they're lying. And especially my male guests have really triggered them. You saw, because you commented on it too. What's his face's clip about shooting the LSD and everybody losing their minds that you can't do that. And it's all men. And like the men who have done things really trigger the men who have not done things in the comments lately.
Totally.
Like, oh my God.
It's like, you guys shut up. It's not
It's
a pissing
crazy.
contest.
It's not a pissing contest. But anyways,
you could shoot the gnarlier stuff, but just for your audience, just in case anyone is curious, you can shoot just about anything. It doesn't mean it's gonna work. I tried to shoot Valium before. It was too thick.
I accidentally shot fabric softener, like I said in that video. I accidentally shot it. I thought it was heroin. It's a long story. I thought there was heroin in my mom's washer. I thought I'd left some heroin.
No, don't tell. I want to hear the story on my podcast. How about that?
Oh, all right. Okay, cool. All right, we'll wait. Because I've actually never shared that story on any podcast yet. So it'll be a reveal on yours.
I love that
right?
so much.
Yeah, I don't think I've even shared it on my own.
That's amazing.
Okay, so you're right for 8 Mile, which we know is true. Yeah.
Exactly. That comment was so ridiculous.
It's so annoying.
So annoying. And so for that audition, they asked you to bring a reader. I brought my friend CJ at the time. So right before the audition, I was so fucking nervous. I thought it would be a great idea to shoot up some cocaine. Also, just in case we get any comments, you can shoot up cocaine, everybody.
Of course
Okay?
you can shoot up
Yes,
cocaine.
you can.
You know the girl in our little crew, Amanda, in the sober girl group chat, Amanda,
Yeah.
her husband, this is one of the funniest comments I've ever gotten on a reel. Someone was like, "You can't shoot up cocaine." And Robert wrote in the comments, he was like, "First of all, who hasn't shot up cocaine? Grow up." And I just thought that was so funny the way he said it. Grow up.
Like, ever heard of a speedball, guys?
Yeah. Grow
Jesus
up.
Christ. So
Anyways, of course you can shoot cocaine. My audience at least knows this. My audience knows that
good.
you can fucking shoot.
Good. So I shot some cocaine. I was nervous as fuck. And I'm pale. You know, I got a little more color to me now, but bruises were yellow on me. Yellow and black and blue and no clue why I didn't have a long sleeve shirt on. I mean, I was out of my mind, you know? So I walk in there, and you have to remember, these are casting directors I've been auditioning for since I'm like 5 years old, or 9 years old, since I've gotten to LA. So it's not just my agents and my representation that know me really well. The casting directors in this town knew me so well that they would see a part and be like, "Oh, call Natanya Ross in, please." You know what I mean? So they all had, vested care for us and stuff. And so I went into that audition. I blew it. I was horrible. Obviously, I was like dripping sweat. Like, it was, and they're like, do you want to try that one more time? And I did it one more time, and they're like, "Can you try one more time?" Like, they were shocked. And by the time I got home, my representation, since I had been like 9 years old, my agent, my commercial agent, my publicist all dropped me by the time I got home. Called me and said, "Hey, we got a call from casting. You're showing up with like track marks on your arms and dripping sweat, and like, what the fuck's going on? And we can't have you out there representing us like that. So, best of luck." Okay. Then my manager calls, and this was different. Her name's Beverly Strong. If you're wherever you are, Bev, I love you. She called me and said the same thing basically, but she said, "Do you need help? I will send you to rehab." She was the only one. And imagine how much money I made my agent over,
Right.
and my public, and everybody.
Yeah.
And not one of them asked if I needed help. It was just fuck you, goodbye. So cold. But not my manager. So when my manager said that, though, I said, I'm not ready. And she said, "Okay, well, I'll be here when you are." And hi, Lucy. Lucy needs attention. Sorry.
Hi, that's okay. That's okay.
This is Lucille Ball, everybody.
Hi. I know. I'm
little
surprised
rescue.
Anthony hasn't come up yet. Oh, I love her. I love
I know,
rescues.
she's
They're the
she's the
sweetest.
sweetest. And that was it. And it was done. And like, I was heartbroken and kind of relieved all in one. And I did like a big fat shot of heroin, and I was like, "Oh, fuck you guys. I gave you my blood, sweat, and tears for 20 years, and I felt chewed up and spit out, and
You were
and
chewed up and
lost.
spit out.
I was, and lost and hopeless, and now stuck in a situation, in a partnership with somebody that we were severely addicted to drugs, and there was no more like new love, falling in love. This was a drug relationship. This was like, I'm stealing balloons behind his back when he's not looking to get a couple extra bags. I'm not paying for shit. He's taking care of everything. The full financial load is on him. I'm basically the passenger princess, to the point where like I never even learned how to shoot up on my own. I mean, I could, but he always did it for me.
I
don't
did that
know.
too.
Yeah, and I don't know for men if that's a control thing, or like for women if it's like a father wound or something. I don't fucking know what that shit is.
Mine was conscious. I thought that if I didn't know how, because my ex,
Right.
he was reluctant to switch me to needles. He was. I mean, he did it. Actually, that's a lie. He kind of made me switch to needles. He was reluctant to give me heroin, but he made me switch to needles. And his rationale at the time was that I was smoking on foil, and he said I was leaving smudgy prints everywhere, and that they were going to get us busted because there was smudgy prints in hotel rooms and on doors. And of course, that makes no fucking sense. But he felt like if there was a needle, he could put it up his butt or jam it into the floor really hard, like at the corner of a wall in the floor, like in a corner of a room, he could jam whatever. But like our harm reduction was, oh, I don't know how. But then what often happens is a year later he gets locked up and I learn how. So,
Right.
yes,
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, at some point, of
I
course,
learned
I
how.
knew how and all of that.
Right.
But, you know, about a year in, we were also on methadone. Like, that's how bad it was that we had to get on methadone for the days that he's flying all around the world to do these like autograph signings. And it was Star Trek. So it's like a big world, that's like a crazy fandom. And we really did survive for a couple years off of that. But then
Where did
when
you
everything
live?
tried, at that time we were living in the Hollywood Hills. Like we had a decent apartment, like, Shane West,
What methadone clinic would you drive to?
just a local one in Hollywood. It was like
Oh,
10
there's one
minutes
in
away.
Hollywood?
Yep, there's one in
I mean,
Hollywood.
I
It's
guess
like
of
right
course there
upstairs. I think
is.
it's closed down now,
Okay.
but yeah, it's in the heart of Hollywood. I would like always get there right before they were about to close. There was nowhere to park. I'd always park in like the tow away and just run up and please, just that
Please, please,
whole
please, please, please.
fucking
Yeah.
that whole fucking cycle. And then when you don't have the money to pay for it and you have to like
It's horrible.
flirt with the guy and be like, please, I'll go
Dude,
back. Give it like all of that shit is like, oh my God.
the hassle of getting to the methadone clinic is fucking unreal. There was a note taped to the window of ours that said, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on our part. And they would slam it shut and walk away. And that was my
Wow.
life at the methadone clinic in San Diego. And like
Absolutely.
and it was $15 a day, which fucking adds
Oh.
up, man.
So yeah,
Down
ours
here.
was like 200 a month. That's about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could also do a month. I was a broke ass. I never had $200. Well, now Medi-Cal
Well,
covers it, which is actually good that Medi-Cal covers it now because
wow.
yeah, Medi-Cal covers it, bro, for free.
That's fucking
Not when I was going, but
yeah, me
anyways.
neither.
No, $60 a day. Anyways, okay, so things degrade in your life.
Yeah.
You're on the methadone clinic. You're using heroin every single day for okay.
Yeah.
How do you get to the next level? Because I know you end up homeless. How does that happen?
Yeah, so we're fully strung out. Like we have a very hefty heroin habit daily. Unfortunately, one time when he went to an autograph signing, he would always leave me just enough of what I needed, and I was usually done out of it within the first day. So this was when I had to go down for the first time to the dealer's house. Henry H. He's passed now, so I can say his name. I'll never forget it because he was our dealer almost for the next 10 years. And it was the exact scene of Requiem from a Dream when she walks in and he looks at her up and down and he knows. He knows. That's the one line I never crossed. I was very lucky. I never had to do that. But he took one look at me and he saw his next moneymaker for sure. And he started grooming me for years and years. And he would do all these little things that like he would call me child star, which is such a sting, I mean, it's something that I'm so proud of, but not in that circumstance.
Yeah, Dave didn't understand this. I listened to your dopey again this morning and I was annoyed. David's a good friend of mine and Dave couldn't understand. He like kept asking you over and over and over again. And I was yelling at my phone. I was like, it stings because she lost the career because she picked drugs. And he like couldn't understand that. He was like, wait, why did it bother you? Oh, because it wasn't your choice to be a child star because your mom made you. And I was like, no, you're so dense right now for such a little genius. He's like a child genius too. And I'm like, why don't you understand this? But as soon as you were saying that, I was like, because she lost it all because she was a drug addict. Dave, why don't you understand? Anyway.
Yeah.
I can understand.
You heard in that episode too, like at Hank's house at a certain point when I ran out of money, at first we were cool. He loved us, hey, what's up, child star? We had money. We had money to buy dope from him daily, and when I went down there, but it was the biggest mistake I ever made. When I went down there by myself, I had to get a hold of my boyfriend in Italy and he was like, oh my fucking God, Natanya, no, you're going to get killed down there. And I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. He was like, dude, they're going to steal your fucking car. I mean, it was just like a Honda at that time, but he's like, they're going to take your car. I'm like, I'm going to be sick. I don't know what to do. I got to go. So he called ahead and said, I'm begging you, take care of her, blah, 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 blah. So Hank had put the word out already before I even got there, not to fuck with me at all. So I get there and they like literally lead me up to his apartment. So it was right off 3rd and Alvarado. He had this whole apartment building. He was a pimp and all his girls had different rooms. And they would pay him like $300 a day or whatever to keep their room and their drug supply. So they would get a certain amount of balloons, a certain amount of crap, whatever it was. So I go in there and Requiem for a Dream. I walk in on this side, there's like behind a red curtain, I can see 2 people like fucking. I like go in and I hear someone say like, come back here. And I like walked through the beads and I walked into the room and yeah, it was the exact scene. And he was like, oh shit, you're mom's girlfriend. I was like, hi, yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry to bother you. I'll be out of here really fast. I just need like 7, this and that, blah, 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 and I'll be out of here. And he was like, girl, relax, sit down. And I was like, fuck. And I was like, oh, okay. And I sat down and I didn't leave there for the next 4 days. And he very strategically sent me over to one of his girls' apartments. Her name is Tiffany. I'll never forget because she did take care of me in those few days and make sure like nothing happened to me. But, he basically told her like, give Natanya crack. Let her try crack. And that was like kind of one thing my boyfriend at the time always like, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that, Natanya. Don't ever do that. And I did it and I was like, and then like after that I was like going to CVS and like buying all the girls like toiletries and like perfumes and stuff like and that it was off to the motherfucking races after that. Like once you put crack into the picture, it's like, oh, I mean, heroin is horrible on its own, but then you add crack in, oh come on, so basically one day Manu gets back from his autograph signing and we have to go straight to Hank's, and Hank was like, it'll be our little secret about the white, like I won't ever tell. And they used to call him Star Trek, so it was Star Trek and Child Star. Oh my god. And we went down there, we got our stuff, and as we were leaving, Hank goes, hey, Child Star, you don't want any of that white? And Manu looked at me and I said, he was like, you did it? I said, yeah. He's like, all right, fuck. He's like, yeah, give me $100 worth. And yeah. So that lasted like that for like 6 months, like when we had money like that. And then all of a sudden he had to front us. And then all of a sudden this and that and blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, we lose our apartment and we end up having to move in with a friend of his, which is Jack Hara. And if you know anything about marijuana, he's legendary. There's like, he has his own strains, he has his own pipes. And my boyfriend at that time's father was like a huge just person in the rainbow gathering world with like Ram Dass and Timothy Leary, and Jack Hara was like huge. So we lived with Jack and his son for a little bit and then they kicked us out because we were in cuckoos. So then basically we go to Echo Park and we lived in a closet of one of his friends. And I would like peek out the closet just to watch TV of like whatever they were watching. It was so, wow. Yeah, that was really degrading. And then,
just smoking crack and shooting heroin.
And living in someone's closet and peeking out of the curtain just to watch what they were watching on TV in the living room. And like every so often someone looking back and I'd be like, sorry, like just shit like that. It was like, what the fuck? 2 years prior, I was like,
on the TV.
Thank you. So that happens. And then basically I just can't take it anymore. And I call my mother and I say, I need to go to rehab. And she said, well, with what money? I said, this is when I find out about the money. I said, well, with my money. And she said, what are you talking about? You don't have any money. You spent all your money. I said, when? She said, I gave you the 100,000, the Coogan account. I said, where's the other fucking money? I said, that Coogan account was only from 6 months old to 8 years old. Where's the money from 8 years old to 20? Oh, Natan, well, we had to live. I had to pay the rent. I said, great. Where's the rest of the money? there was enough money to support 5 fucking families. And then she just would gaslight me into, you didn't make as much as you think you did and this and that, but I was calling SAG and I was getting accurate numbers, so I knew exactly what I was talking about. But it was just gaslighting, and at a certain point I decided that like, hey, I can't live my life like this anymore. And I just said, fuck it, I don't care about the money. And that kind of answers your question about earlier. Have I ever pursued legal with her? I would never, because one, at the end of the day, it would just make me as on the same level as her. It would make me care more about money than my serenity and the peace that I've attained for myself through recovery and hard work and therapeutic communities and therapy and all of that. And look, if she needed the money that bad for something that she wanted to steal from a kid that wasn't even really hers, take it. You can have it. It's fine. It wasn't meant to be mine. It was not meant to be mine. And maybe I would have killed myself with it. I don't know. But it was a hard hit. So when I called her to go to rehab, she agreed to pay for it if I signed over power of attorney. And at this time, I had helped her buy a house. And by helped, I mean I bought it. My name was on the deed. That's all I asked for. I said, just if it ever gets sold, I want half. So when I had to go to rehab, she got, me off the deed because of the power of attorney, because I was a danger to myself and others. So that was my first rehab experience. So yeah, the first rehab I went to was Hope by the Sea in Laguna Niguel. And it was, it definitely kept me closer to where my mom lived, but it was like out of Hollywood, it was out of everything. So I go to this rehab, I fucking relapsed in my first week. It was Suboxone had just come out. And I mean just come out. They were like, this is a new miracle drug, this and that, but if you use while you're on it, you will get very, very sick. And I was like, okay. And then, of course, there was a cute boy there who had a freaking girlfriend, and I didn't know. He didn't tell me. I was so new there. I hadn't met everybody yet, even. My intake was at like 2 a.m. It was something crazy. And I always gravitated towards the boys because I was too young at that point yet to understand how valuable the females were. And I, of course, relapsed with this boy. And I threw up all over the house after and like crawled my way into bed somehow. They've obviously busted me. They let me stay. I stayed there for a while, and then when I got back home, I called another boy that I had been with before. His name is Blake. He's passed now, unfortunately. He was really the love of my life until I met my incredible boyfriend now, of course. And so we ended up getting strung out together. And then we also got kicked out of our apartment, and we had no one to call, so we called Manu, my ex-boyfriend.
Your ex. Okay.
So we break up while I'm in rehab, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm with the new guy. We call Manu, and now somehow the three of us are all together. Not in a sexual, not like that. He was just like, yeah, I'm homeless too. Let's all link up, whatever, right? So we all moved into the car together, and we lived in the car for the next year. And
car.
Hit Manu's car. It was like this.
What kind of car was
this old Oldsmobile, this gray Oldsmobile. I'll never forget. And like I told you, like give me a corner of anything and I'll make a home for myself. And they gave me the back seat. I made it my own. I really did. Like I had a little portable DVD player that I would watch my movies on with my little. I tried to make the best of it. We would like all try, and I worked at Dimples for a whole year. Like I pulled it off.
Living in the car?
Yeah, I would get dropped.
Where would you shower and brush your teeth and stuff?
There's a shower at the Van Nuys Park. I don't know if it's still there, but at the Van Nuys Park, it costs like $5, and you can go in and shower and all of that stuff. So we would do that like every other day. And then they would drop me off for my shift at like, 7 p.m. or whatever it was and pick me up at like 4 a.m.
Waiting tables?
No, I was a fucking bartender, dude, at Dimples. So I was actually making really good money. But
I can't believe you were shooting heroin and smoking crack again? Going to work?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember the girls would ask me, like, why are you sweating so much? You're like dripping sweat. I'm like, I'm moving so fast, and I was also drinking on the job. So, like, it was just all too much, and I so desperately want. And then I would see, like, groups of my actor friends come in, and it was just so hard. And, like, they'd be like, Natanya, come have a drink after. And so I'd call the boys and be like, hey, I want to hang out with these people after. And they're like, no, we need, it was like so hard. And I was like really trying to have like some kind of normal life or something. So I wanted to like escape with the people from the bar after. But anyway, so I hold that job down for like a year and a half. And then we found a place in downtown LA called the Hotel Cafe. And it was a trap hotel. It's gentrified the fuck at the game now, but it was a trap motel. It was for transients. It was for people that had nowhere to go and no one to call. It was $500 a month, no bathroom, no kitchen. There was one bathroom for the whole apartment. There was like 30 units. It was everyone from like homeless people to prostitutes, I mean, just anyone you can think of. Pimped, just everybody. But it was something of ours finally, and it was 2 rooms, so not even rooms. It was just like one big room and then a wall in between. And so Manu stayed on that wall. Me and Blake were on this wall. And like I said, I really tried to make it something, but like, now we're down to, now we're fucking in it. Now we're like basically Skid Row adjacent. We're right on Skid Row for the most part. And I try to hold down a job at Groundlings Coffee. I get fired for stealing from the till, and then now we're just doing dumb criminal, just dumb shit. We were the worst criminals just to get our dope every day.
The girl, because I was in trap house situations like this too. And there's always a girl who is really sweet, usually a tweaker, who is actually trying to decorate her corner with like, the dream catchers and crystals on the walls. And she's putting some pictures up. And I was never that person. I was disgusting. And it is so heartbreaking to see the girl in the trap house who is like trying to decorate her little corner of the world and make it pretty when everything is so disgusting and bad. But there's such like a spirit there. And
you have to remember, I know it's really it is heartbreaking when you
it's
think of it like
heartbreaking.
that. And what you have to remember is me and Blake, so the new boyfriend, okay? He was a huge child star too. He was the most talented actor I've ever known, other than my other boyfriend who passed away. And I met my best friend at the time, Marla Sokoloff, who was on Full House, and we did Babysitters Club together. And she's, icon. You'll see her on my podcast too, and it's a really special episode. But she introduced me to Blake when we were 13, and God, he was so beautiful. He was in a movie called Shiloh at that time about a dog. It was like him and a dog, and he was like getting big attention from that. And he had this like raspy smoker's voice at 13, and we just fell in love like right away, and we were like in love on and off and on and off and on and off and on and off. He actually he lost his virginity to me at 18.
In that trap house?
No. This is when we were still like, no.
Oh, right.
We
18. Okay.
We still had money. This is when we all lived in that big apartment together, and we were like, having the time of our lives. But at this point now, Blake and I were always the worst of the group. At that time, we were kind of the most successful, to be honest. We were the wildest. We were the hard, we were driving to Mexico every weekend just to get bottles of pills and bring them back. It was crazy. So by the time I get out of rehab, I call Blake, we get back together, we get kicked out, we're living with Manu, now we're downtown, we did a year and a half in the car, now we're downtown, we're all trying to hold down jobs, it's just not working, we sign up at the methadone clinic downtown. Problem is, it's like a 20-minute bus ride, and it's like a 10-minute walk to get to the bus. I mean, and you get it when you wake up like there. Yeah, it's like half the time you're like, fuck it, I'm not going. Yeah. And you don't even have the money to go, and you have to like flirt with the guy. And
what kind of hustles did you guys have for cash for dope back then? You gotta tell me a few. I love junkie hustles. Okay.
Well, obviously, the one we all do, which is the panhandle. That's always one. If there's a girl there, the girl's usually gonna get sent out because they have better luck. Some of them I really like. I've gone back and made amends, but I would go into like restaurants and steal tips off the tables. I'd run into like a Starbucks and grab everything out of the tip jar. And then when I worked at the coffee shop, that was the worst because I was just like making bagfuls of money and just like I would take someone's order, not ring it up, and then ring up every other, and then they were so kind to me. They pulled me in the back and they were like, look, a customer saw what you did and reported it. And we can tell you have a drug problem. And we really care about you and we want you to get help. We obviously have to fire you. We're not going to press charges. We're not going to ask for the money back. Here's your last paycheck, and you're not welcome in here anymore, obviously. And we really like wish you the best. And it's weird how just certain conversations like stick out. So that happened and then, robbing cars and just dumb shit. Like it just wasn't working. And our very worst one was this was so stupid. We would take like a $5 bill and wrap it around singles, and then drive downtown and try and do a pass off like that. It is as if it was $25 or something until the point where we couldn't even drive the car down these certain streets because they'd all look at us and be like, you're fucking dead. So, yeah, it was a real thing, and I know a lot of people look at me now because I've built a huge career in mental health and substance abuse, and I'm the president of WAT, and I'm an actress, and I have this pot and all of the things, and people are, they hear the story and they're like, what the fuck? But yeah,
But that's why we tell them.
That's why we
That's why we tell them.
I was definitely a real one. And, it was not looking like I was ever going to really make it out of that situation alive. And God intervened one more time. I sometimes wonder if it's my birth parents, that have kind of carried me through the whole time.
Do you know anything about them at all, your birth parents?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get to that later, but...
I'm very close with all my family now. So, okay, what was I doing at this point?
Well, so how long do you live in this weird trap hotel transient?
Yes. So I'm there for about a year and a half. And then the three of us on our own actually went to rehab. We panhandled enough to get bus tickets and we got up to San Francisco. We found a free rehab out there. They took all three of us miraculously, but it was a rehab again for transients, So like, I'll never forget, I'm detoxing in my room and then across the hall. Oh my God, I'll never forget him. This poor guy, he was paraplegic from the war. So he was a veteran and he was detoxing off of methadone. And I've never heard screams like this in my life. And I mean, he literally shit the walls. Like, I mean, the smell in the whole place was insane. And, and it was just person after person like that in room after room. And it was just, you really count your blessings when you get sober like that. Blake and I obviously had to pretend like we weren't together because, they don't want couples in there, which I totally agree with. And anyway, so we did that rehab. And while I was there, I called my mother and she was like, oh my God, you did it on your own? Okay. But what I did before I called my mom was I called Beverly Strong, my old manager. And I said, Bev, me and Blake had been with Beverly since he was like 10 years old. So she was our manager for like 15 years, both of us. And I called her and she was like, wow, that's amazing. She's like, look, if you come back and agree to stay on the right path, I will manage you again and we will get your career back. I was like, what? Oh my God, So I called my mom because I knew the only times my mom would ever talk to me were when I was acting or when I had something going on. Or even just the simple, like, hey, I'm gonna go get headshots because I have an agent. That was enough, But if I didn't have anything like that to report, calling her saying like, hey, I just hit 5 years sober, or hey, that wasn't as exciting.
Were you guys talking during those years when you lived in the car in the hotel? Were you guys talking at all, like on your birthday or her birthday or anything?
Barely. Yeah, every so often, but barely. So
you call her again.
Yeah, so I call her after I talked to Beverly and I told her, I said, look, Bev said if I come back and I stay on the straight and narrow and that she's going to manage me again and we're going to get my career back. And I was like, but I don't know what to do, Mom, because I don't have money for a sober living. And, and she's like, I'll pay for it. I'll do everything. So she's like, but one agreement. You cannot go back into that apartment, not even to get your stuff. And I was like, well, how the fuck am I going to get my stuff? She said, and then she had a new husband at this time, David, who I love. And it's really sad. She's like, never let me have a relationship with him really. But we leave the rehab. Manu's dad picks us up. I actually smoked weed immediately, but I wasn't like I didn't understand sobriety. I was just like, "Woo, I'm off heroin, whatever." So smoked weed, blah blah blah. We went back to the apartment. My mother and David were waiting there when I got back. She immediately like put me in their car and she said, David will go get all your stuff or we'll go get it. So she went up there and got everything while they were getting everything. Manu was helping them and me and Blake were saying goodbye. It was really sad. And he was like, baby, it's not a goodbye. It's not a goodbye. We're getting married. We're engaged. Like, we just have to get better. And we need to heal like separately, but I'm right here. Like, I'm not staying in this apartment for too long. He's like, I'll be at your sober living this weekend. I'm going to visit you this weekend. So I never went back into that apartment. They got everything. And my mother came down and she was crying. She was like, I cannot believe this is how you were living. And I said, yeah, I mean, yeah. So they took me and dropped me off at a Christian rehab in the valley. Now we're Jews. We're like big Jews, I love all religion. I didn't really care. But my mom was like, what did you do this morning? I was like, oh, they woke me up kind of early. I guess I have to go to like Bible study every morning. And she was like, what the fuck? And she pulled me out of there real quick. And then she put me in another sober living called Sober Souls in the valley. And that was an interesting experience. And then after that, it was kind of just the rat race almost. Do you know what I mean? Blake and I never got back together, unfortunately. We did have a little engagement party with all of our actor friends, but didn't quite work out for us, unfortunately. But we did remain best friends. And Blake eventually got sober and we got to do all sorts of cool shit together, like go to meetings. He would come hear me speak, give me cakes, and that was like a trip, because he's such a huge part of my story. So I'm gonna speed up a little bit here.
But that's what your sobriety did.
No.
Okay,
so I'm gonna speed up a little bit here. So at this point, they get me out of downtown LA. My mother steps up a little bit. Both of the sober livings did not work out. I eventually make my way to Angel Villa. That is where I stayed for like the next 3 to 5 years, actually, with Georgia Ferbata. She was my sponsor at that time. And I did a lot better, and then I wouldn't. And then I did, and then I wouldn't. And then I would drink, and I wouldn't. And it was just this crazy thing. During this time, I got a job at a restaurant. And I loved it. And I like, any job I get, I will like go to the top immediately. Like I'm just hustle. I was head waitress like very quickly. I was one of the managers very quickly. And I could wait. I mean, I was young, so I could move. I don't think I could do it now, but I could move, and so waiting tables. I was living with my best friend Jenna at this time, moved out of the sober living, and I'm drinking normally, trying to, and I get a message on MySpace one night, and it's from my ex-boyfriend Brad, and it just says, I miss you. He was an actor as well. He was just such a powerful presence, and I agree. He was like dubbed the River Phoenix of my generation. And he was. He really was. He like I said, Blake for sure, but Brad is the most talented actor I've ever known, truly. So I said, I miss you too. And I was at his house within like 20 minutes. And for the next year, we were absolutely inseparable. We did nothing together. We lived together. We fell in love in a very, alcohol induced again type of love. But it was, for us, it was real. That doesn't mean it wasn't real. The whole year I battled him wanting to do heroin. And because his story was so publicly known for him being a drug addict and all of this stuff. And for both of us at this time, neither of us had touched it in like a year. Also, oddly enough, guess who hangs out with us all the time? Blake. I don't know what it was. It was the weirdest thing. I know. But Manu and Blake, and now Blake and Brad, what the fuck, But it was what it was. And Blake and I were very much like that. We were family also, so it's like wherever I went, he went, vice versa. But so it was me, Brad, and Blake a lot of times, but it was really me and Brad. And one night I didn't think I was going to see him, so I took a bunch of Xanax. I was wasted, all of this stuff. He calls and he was my world. So I would drop anything at any time to go see him. And I did that. And I was very upset because Blake had a birthday party and didn't invite me because he was mad at me. And Brad was screaming he's like, why the fuck do you care? He's like, you know why Blake didn't invite you? Because he's still in love with you and you're still in love with him. This is like a whole thing. And we were fighting about that. And then he was like, fuck it, we're going. And I was like, going where? He's like, we're going to get it. And I was like, no, dude, no, no. And he like went in my purse to get my car keys and saw that I had some Xanax in there. And that was like my one thing that I hid from him was pills, always, because I didn't want him to take them. So anyway, long story short, that's what happened. And this everybody for the most part knows the story now.
Yeah, just share it here briefly because a
Yeah.
lot of my people don't listen to the other
Yeah,
shows.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you end up
So,
on heroin together, basically.
no, actually, we only did it
Oh,
that one night. It was that
oh,
one night,
okay, okay.
one night only. Yeah, so we ended up getting heroin, and sadly, he died next to me in bed that night. And it was the first and only time we had done it together, and that was it.
Oh, it was
And
that night that you're talking about?
yeah,
Oh, shit.
yeah,
That's the night he died.
correct. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Everything was God, such a whirlwind after that, as you can imagine, press, there's like helicopter news, but I mean, it was crazy. They had to carry me out in a blanket and, and they got me out of there, my friends, and brought me home. And, everyone was kind of waiting for me to sober up. I mean, I was annihilated still. You have to remember it was just from the night before and I'd done heroin for the first time in years, couldn't find a vein. I did a hot shot. So that shit was still slowly even spreading through me probably. And it's funny because Dave was like, I've never heard it called a hot shot because that's like the death shot.
I haven't either.
But
And
it's
I thought the
skin
same
popping.
thing.
It's
Skin
skin
popping or
popping, yeah.
a muscle. But I thought also hot shot was like a shot that kills you. But yeah, I thought the same
Yeah,
thing.
it was
During that part.
we call it a hot shot because you just skin pop. You just have to go
Yeah.
in anywhere,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
your
yeah.
butt, whatever, and hope that you fucking feel it. So anyway, so all of this, and there was I don't remember a shit ton about the night or the morning, but I also remember a lot, and one of the most important things that I remember is the night before when we got back to his house and we were walking in his room and he stopped and he said, nothing's ever going to be the same again, right? And I said, yeah, I know. And then we went in the bedroom and he was doing more. And I said, I want to do more too. And he said, kiddo, I think you've done enough. And that was the very last thing he said to me. And I've never touched a needle ever since. I have so many different sobriety days through so many different things. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I've been in recovery for so long that I've learned that it's okay to honor all of that. We don't have to be so damn rigid and everything. It's like, don't take away from somebody that they haven't used a fucking needle and since January 15th, 2008, and that they haven't done heroin since July 8th, 2018. I put out or longer because 13 years, but I actually put out a video I think I sent it to you actually semi recently when I was explaining why I chose the date July 8th to launch the podcast. And it's because it was my old sobriety date. And I changed my sobriety date during COVID actually, because I had so many surgeries and there was just like a couple times with the medication that just kept lingering in my head. And I was like, I'd rather just do it now than in 10 years from now risk dying over it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So I
Okay.
opened my mouth and said something. But anyway, so going back to all of that, so unfortunately, Brad died and my life was crazy for the next week. I mean, it was just I was followed everywhere by paparazzi and reporters and people were offering me like hundreds of thousands of dollars for my story and obviously I never took any of it and I no, it was never gonna happen. I do have a book that's coming out and it's explained sensitively, but it was always my story to tell when I was ready to tell it. And, I don't even know if I am ready to tell, to be perfectly honest, but the universe put me in a position where I was literally sitting on this couch with somebody who was so good, like you, truly. You guys are such good interviewers, and you provide such a safe, warm space that, of course, people are going to open up, and that's what I'm doing on my podcast as well. But so that happened, and it was the defining moment of my life, and I knew my life had ended and also began all in one moment. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I think for me at that time, like my entertainment career, it was done. I needed to just be done with that world for a while and immerse myself into the recovery world. And that's what I did. So I got sober 3 days later. So he died January 15th, 2008. Super weird because my ex-husband has that same birthday. I should have known.
That's my sobriety date.
January 15th?
Yes.
Now that's beautiful.
That's my sobriety date.
But not 2008.
No, 2015.
Oh, okay.
That would have been really crazy. It's 1/15/15.
I love that.
Yeah, which I kind of did on purpose, actually. Wow. I ran out of heroin on the 4th, on January 4th, or like the 6th or the 7th, and then I drank through the kick. I'd only been using for a few months that time, so I drank until about the 14th. And I always kind of wanted to have a cool sobriety date, and I had chosen one before that never worked. And I was like, well, I'm sure this won't work either, but 1/15/15 would be cool in some fucking alternate universe where I finally fucking do this. And I did. And it's 1/15/15.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you just restored my faith in that number, actually. But yeah, so anyway, unfortunately, he passed on that day, 2008. I got sober 3 days later, January 18th, 2008. And I stayed sober for about 4 years. And about 2 years into my sobriety, somebody said, have you ever thought about working in treatment? And I was like, no, what does that even mean? Even though I had been to treatment a couple times, like treatment in San Francisco off the Tenderloin when I went, that wasn't really an experience. Hope by the Sea, sure, that would have been a pretty normal first treatment experience, so to speak. So I kind of knew what treatment was, but so I said, well, yeah, I mean, I would love to try. And it was Seasons Malibu.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And it was Seasons Malibu. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like 27. And I came and worked as an overnight tech for
cool.
like 3 nights or something like that. And then I got moved to morning. And I was there. I don't even know if you'll know some of these names. It was so long ago, but I was there. Like the shift lead, his name is Chris Ford. We got really close with shout out Chris Ford. And
Gina is still there. Gina might have. She might have been there when you were there, but yeah, Gina's still there. Okay, she's still there. She is the person that when I go there, like lets me in. In fact, thank God I feel so comfortable with her. The very first time I was there, I do my interview in the CEO's office.
I know,
in Dawn's office.
Yeah. I know.
I unscrewed a light bulb because it was making a reflection, and I dropped this light bulb on the ground and it shattered day 1. And I was like, oh my God. And I like went into the hallway and I saw Gina and I was like, Gina, I just smashed a fucking light bulb. Can we not tell Dawn? Can you just clean it up? Blah, blah, blah. And or get me another one. And she was like, I got it. Don't worry. So Dawn, if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry. Yeah. But
oh my God, that's so funny. She's the fucking best. I love her. I love her.
Really, really kind woman.
She's a really kind person. She took good care of me when I was there.
Natanya, that's crazy. Okay.
I worked at Seasons for like 3 or 4 years.
And good. Okay.
Yeah. And then I eventually was the program director.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And,
so you know Dawn. You know who I'm talking about, obviously.
Yeah, the owner of Seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Dawn. Dawn knows me. So, unfortunately, there was a very bad man who was the other owner at that time.
Oh, see, I don't actually know any of this.
I mean, I'll tell it.
I'll probably cut it out, but go ahead and tell me.
Yeah. So I worked at Seasons for like 3-4 years. For Dawn, of course, but for the other owner, who is Chris Batham.
Oh, you told me that name, and I googled that name, but it doesn't say Seasons online.
Oh, well, he's
in
prison now, right?
What happened? What the fuck?
I mean,
I looked at the wrong person.
I testified like 4 or 5 times against him. So,
oh my God.
The story is basically I was at Seasons for 3 or 4 years. I did so well that I was like program director towards the end, and like me and Chris and Gina, we were running shit. Like we had that place, and Chris trusted us and just let us do whatever we want. And I don't know if she's still there. I was going up every day to Peju. She was our literal like herbal botanist or whatever. Yeah, we ran that place. And basically, long story short, Chris had a grandiose idea of going to open a treatment facility in Koreatown in a hotel called Walking Miracles. I'm obviously teacher's pet. Towards the end of that, we're all starting to realize like Chris is a little weird. He's doing some weird stuff. Him and Don start, Don's trying to get him out because Chris is bad. It's a bad man. And some people were smart enough to recognize that, like Gina and some of us other ones were not as smart, and a couple of us followed him like the Messiah.
Okay.
I was, his right-hand man, basically. But at this point, he wasn't doing the stuff he was doing at Community Recovery LA. At this point, it was stuff behind the scenes I didn't know about. But I was being sold a dream that we were going to save the world in an entirely different way. And this was going to be like just cutting edge treatment and all of this stuff. And I'm going to be at the ground up running it. And he was paying me like crazy money, and the story goes is this. I mean, I fucking opened a great treatment facility there. I gotta say, he ruined it, of course. One day he came into my office. He said, "Hey, I did the client search or the search for you, bag search. Don't worry, I got it off your plate." But crazy, he had like 40 old school Oxycontin 80s in his bag. I said, "That is crazy." Now, I have very bad kidneys. They've always been really bad. I literally go to the hospital probably 3 times a year for a surgery, for a kidney surgery. I have 50 stones between each kidney. It's insane. Anyway, long story short, so at that time I was like in the middle of kidney episodes, and he said, "Do you want them?" I said, "If I take these pills, I'm like out." And he said, "I won't tell if you don't." And I said, "All right, cool. Let me have them." And I took one, and that was it. And I was off to the races again.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So what did you go to prison for? What did you go to prison for?
It's coming.
Okay, all right.
No,
Okay,
no,
sorry.
So now I'm loaded. Okay. And it only took me like 2 weeks to snap out. I mean, I'm kind of born and bred in recovery in a way, it's like I've been there. They shoved me in the rooms when I was 16. It's like, it's in you at that point, right? So it didn't take me long, but I did the craziest thing ever. I like went there and I stormed in like when I knew it was treatment team. And I was like, "I want everyone to know I'm fucking loaded now. I know I'm not sober anymore." And he gave me the fucking pills. He owed me money. He hasn't paid me. I said, "Write me my motherfucking check right now or I'm going to burn this whole fucking place down."
Natanya! Okay, so I'm actually going to leave this all in because this doesn't reflect badly on seasons. It reflects badly on this guy. I thought it was going to be a bad season story.
Yeah, I just sated seasons.
Oh my God.
They were the shade. So this was a wild scene, and Chris is like, "Calm down, blah, blah, blah," and everyone else is, and I'm not going to say the names of who because they're still in the industry today, and they stayed with him to go to Community Recovery LA, knowing full well. So when I walk in and burst in and have this scene, I'm just now finding out how bad of a person he is, okay? Because once he gave me the pills and I snapped out of it a couple weeks later, I was like, "That's the fucking devil. Who does that?" Right? So then I like walk. I mean, I'm still loaded at this point, but I'm just a little more out of the haze. Walk in, make the big scene. He writes me my fucking check because I'm like, I'm not leaving till I get my money, And then he like said, I said, make it more," and he did. And I told him exactly how I felt. I said, "I think you're the fucking devil. I had no idea this is how you were." And I quit, and that was it. And within a month, I started getting subpoenaed every other fucking week to testify against him. Yeah, because he stopped paying everybody, and everyone starts to, and it was this big crazy thing. So then a year later, I'm strung out on heroin again.
Oh no. Oh, Natanya.
This time I'm smoking it. I'm not saying that makes it better, but when Brad died, I swore I'd never use it
Yeah.
again, and that's not a promise I'm gonna break. So, smoking heroin, and I managed to, I mean, listen, I didn't manage to keep a lot, but I basically was living in an apartment at this time in Van Nuys, just one bedroom. I had all my stuff to my name. That's what I had still, which was incredible. I mean, it's a miracle. I had my car, all of that. And at this point, I was just living off of disability. Now, I was making so much money, with Chris that I was actually getting pretty decent disability. I was also, now I went back to waitressing. It's so weird. It's like when I'm loaded, I bartend or waitress, and when I'm sober, I work in treatment. But so, I was also working at this hookah lounge, and there was a lot of like mafioso type. I mean, it was just a crazy, 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 crazy thing. And then finally, I wake up one day and I'm pregnant.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I just didn't know what to fucking do. I had no idea what to do. So I called somebody that I had been in AA with, the program with, who I knew, well, I knew he opened a treatment facility because I helped him open it. And he was the only person I could think of to call. And I called him and I told him everything that was going on. And he helped me take care of everything. And he said, I'm going to send you to Beit Teshuva, but you have to be willing to go for at least 30 days. I said, ugh, no, I'll go for 2, how to. And it's like, Natanya, you're the one calling for help. Shut up, like, and this person sent people from Beit Teshuva to my house within like 2 hours, and they packed my entire apartment up for me, put it into storage. This guy paid for it until I was able to, because with the disability, I had just enough to, like, you know what I mean? And no, I'm sorry, I wasn't even on disability yet. I was just living off of the money I was making from the restaurant. When I got to Beit Teshuva, they got me on disability. That's what happened. So this guy paid for my car note, my storage unit, and all my meds, anything I needed it at Beit Teshuva for the first 3 months till I got on my disability. Then I was able to take over my own car payment, blah blah blah. So that's how that happened. I
Beit
said,
Teshuva, for the audience, is a very good free long-term
incredible.
rehab in
Yeah.
Los Angeles. It's free and it's long-term and it's really good.
Yeah,
So, okay.
it is. It was also a really, really cool, unique opportunity for me to connect back with my
Yeah.
Judaism.
With
Um,
yeah, it's a
yeah,
Jewish rehab,
it's a
right?
Jewish rehab, whether you're Christian, atheist, Jewish, it doesn't matter. You're up at 6 in the morning in Torah study with the rabbi. You can be shivering and shitting yourself from withdrawal, and you are in there. And I said I would go for 30 days. I ended up staying for 14 months.
Oh, whoa.
I made some friends in there that I'm still dear friends with to this day. They were at my wedding. I'm divorced. We can get there. I don't know if you know Dano Goldman or Noah Mann. Like, so many people that work in the industry now that own facilities now. It's incredible to see. There's like probably 20 or 30 of us from that, like, generation of Beit Teshuva that went on to go work in treatment and open up places and be the directors and all of the things. And yeah, it's so I did that. And honestly, I got a job working in treatment while I was still in Beit Teshuva. I was upstairs in independent living, which is their, like, you're like a normal person, but you're still in Beit Teshuva. It's cool. You're still part of the community. They really know how to do it there, to be perfectly honest. That was incredible. I moved out with one of the girls I made friends with there, as you do in early sobriety, moved back to the valley, got connected back in with all my valley people that I hadn't seen in forever, like my best friend Virginia and all of that. And then Virginia ended up moving in with me, and we just like had kind of a first 10 years of like two single girls in their 30s, and then we met boyfriends, and then we got married, all of the things. And yeah, so that was that. And but seasons kicked it all off for me, and now
Wow, that's crazy. That's
I
so
know.
that's so random. I didn't know that too when I asked you to interview. So, okay, what does your life look like? Because I know you chose to reset your date during COVID. Okay. What does your life look like though overall in sobriety? Because you've been in recovery for a long time. I know your date has bounced around, but I'm a big believer that you've been in recovery for a long time. Talk to me about your life now and what your recovery looks like now and and over the years?
Sure, yeah. So my life now is I need to actually really stop and be more grateful for how incredible it truly is, because as you know, I can get stuck so much on the like, well, what the fuck? I've been working in treatment for 20 years and I still live paycheck to paycheck and my
Totally.
account's overdrawn $200
Totally.
and it's like, and I don't even have any kids where I can be like, well, I have kids. I don't even have that. And I know you can relate to that too, and I do have a step kid, but, he's almost an adult and he doesn't really need much from me. So yeah, it's me and my boyfriend live together. So after all of that, just kind of a brief thing just to feel a little context in, I got married to somebody else, and half the people in the industry were at the wedding. Actually, all of my best friends were my bridesmaids, so like all eight of my all eight of my best friends were my bridesmaids, which was beautiful. And it was like the wedding of your dreams. I had it at who I call my mama, Shireen Jaunty. She's like a huge name in the industry. God, her contributions have been insane. I think she's there a little bit now again, but she worked at Music Cares for almost 30 years. She was the executive director over there. And I met her 10 years ago and said, I don't have a mom really. And she said, well, you do now, and she meant that. And she really took me in and showed me what a mom is. So yeah, so we had the wedding at her house, and long story short, we got divorced within 7 months because of infidelity. I'll just leave it at that. But to go, to have to heal from a betrayal that deep, I will tell you that I'm so grateful that not one time did I think about drinking or like doing heroin or anything like that. But, what other thoughts are left after that? If you can't drink and you can't do drugs like normal people can do in a breakup, when you can go out every night with your girlfriends, get drunk and fuck whatever, dude, right? Like, we can't do that. We gotta live through that. And that divorce almost killed me, quite literally. When I first got divorced, the blind side was so intense, I will say, that my bridesmaids, they took shifts watching me. So for like 2 months, one girl would come stay for 3 days, and then the next girl would come, and I was catatonic. I was like, it's so fucked up because I've watched it after every breakup, but it was never that bad. And I was like, thank God it's not that bad. And then it finally was. That scene, that whole part in Sex in the City, the first one, when Big doesn't make it in time.
Yeah.
And then she's just catatonic for like a week. And her friends are like, please eat some porridge. That was me. For like a month, my friends were there. And then the second month, my brother came down to stay with me for like a month and a half to help take care of me. And then after he left, I was getting a little better. I was dating, all of the things, but I was very suicidal for the first month. I was completely cut off from that family, and like with no explanation, and all probably because I got angry because the man I had been with for almost 10 years just,
Oh, his family, you mean, yeah.
yeah. And I also want to say too, and I know you guys will edit this discreetly, so I don't say as much bad shit as I just said, but I do want this in. I do want to say though, just like for any men that listen to this podcast, if you are going to date a woman that's older than you, that's okay. Like, I really believe that age, I truly believe that. But if you are going to date and marry a woman that's 10 years older than you, because my ex-husband was 10 years younger, those are her baby making years. Okay? So do not fuck with somebody like that. That's disgusting. That's really all I have to say about that.
You
I'm
wouldn't
40.
want kids? You wouldn't
Yeah,
want kids? Okay.
absolutely. I'm almost 45 now, so that's probably not in the cards for me anymore. We got married when I was 41, and I was fully divorced by 42.
Okay.
I met Nate when I was like 42 and a half, and we've been together ever since. So yeah, I do want to adopt. I will adopt one day. That's always been my dream, because finding out about me being adopted and just how incredible that experience has been for me. Just my sister, I have a little sister from my mother's side of the family. She's 32. Oh my God, Simone, don't kill me. But she's like my twin. I mean, she's my mini me. She's my soulmate. We're best friends.
How did you find your birth parents?
I mean, it would have to be a part 2. We're at 2 hours,
Okay.
2.5 hours.
I know, we're 2.5 hours.
I'll tell you the story if you want to cut it.
Well, I want to go ahead and, because I want people to listen to the whole thing, and we're definitely into the era of like when people, the attention spans these days. Yeah. So
you're gonna have to cut a lot.
Last question.
Yeah.
I want to ask while we're in. Well, actually, that's a lie too. What is your relationship with your mom, your adopted mom now?
So, and I got ate up in the comments on the last podcast I did that I talked about this. People were like, shame on you for even telling your mother you're adopted, you selfish bitch. Yeah. I was like, did you listen to the whole podcast? So anyway, I waited 1 year before I confronted her about it because I wanted to come from a place of love.
You truly found out you were adopted.
Correct.
You found out a different way. She didn't tell you.
No. Okay. I found out a totally different way.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And
at what age?
At 35.
Okay.
I waited 1 year to tell her because I didn't want to come from a place of resentment. I wanted to come from a place of love and understanding. I wanted to work with my sponsor and my therapist and my friends and my ex-husband at the time and his family on all of this so I could really come from a good place. And that's what I did. And I called her a year later and I had it on speakerphone because I needed a witness to the extreme gaslighting. And so I had my ex-husband on, he speaker, and it was about an hour and a half conversation of her telling me over and over that, they had stolen my blood. You're an actress. How could you fall for something like that? And I said, look, this is science. It's DNA.
Like, you're not adopted. That's not true. She was trying to stay with that.
Correct. For a long time. It was, to the point where at one point I muted it and I looked at my ex-husband. I said, is there any way she's telling the truth? And he was like, stop, you got to hang up now. That's it. You got to cut he's like, now I see how you've been her hostage your whole life. You are her hostage. He said, I thank him for that. And he also told me once, he said, you have to learn how to start managing your expectations of other people because nobody is going to show up the way you do. You don't miss a birthday. You don't miss a card. You don't miss a present. You don't miss a text. You repost everybody's shit even when nobody reposts yours. No one's going to be able to meet you there and you're going to get your heart broken over and over. And that was a great lesson that I learned from him. So thank you for that, I guess. You still owe me money though. Okay, that's okay. And and then I told her all this. She denied it. And she never spoke to me ever again.
Oh my God. So it's been 14 years?
No. It's because I'm 44. So 9 years, almost 10 years.
Wow.
And then one time, the year I was getting married, she texted me happy birthday on the 4th. Oh, well, here's another part of the story. So she told me my whole life that my birthday is October 8th. October 8th, 1981. That's my government birthday. So it's everywhere. When I found out I was adopted, I found out my birthday is actually October 4th.
Oh, that's wild.
Thank God I'm still a Libra. I would have been fucking pissed. But
thank God it's the same year. No, actually,
I know.
God, wouldn't that have been awesome if it was like,
wouldn't I have gone down a
year was younger?
But yeah, I found that out, and that was pretty wild. So the year I was getting married, and she knew I was getting married as well, she was not invited to my wedding, and she texted me happy birthday on the 4th. And that was, I think, her way of admitting it. And that's all she could do. That's okay, and I've texted her every year since on her birthday and Mother's Day. I love you.
She doesn't answer.
She will every so often. I say, I love you, Mom. I'll even say, I want to remind you because both of my birth parents passed away before I found out. So I'll never meet them. I only know the rest of the family.
Okay.
Yeah. and my cousins. And so on my father's side, that's like my real family. It doesn't even feel like I'm adopted. It just feels like I've belonged to them forever. I have a grandpa, 3 uncles, 4 cousins. One of my cousins, he's 16. He's like my best friend. He gets an annual trip to LA every year to hang out with me and Nate. He's obsessed with Nate. And we're obsessed with him. He's the best kid. All my cousins. I wish they could all come out here every year. My sister is my soulmate.
Wow, that's really cool.
And I don't think she would mind me saying this, but oh God, just tragic. So I was supposed to marry her. I got ordained to marry her. The morning I was supposed to fly out, I got a horrible kidney incident and was rushed to the hospital and never made it to the wedding. So I was so heartbroken. And then like a month and a half later, he tragically died in a car accident.
Oh
Yeah.
no. Oh
And I'll tell you, I've been more inspired by my sister and just watching how graceful she is. And also the weirdest thing is she's just like me.
yeah.
It's so
Funny.
fucking weird. Like
Yeah.
one of my best friends we found out has breast cancer and we're just a heart, she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. Everything is gonna be fine. But my sister, like in the middle of mourning, the love of her life, took the time to text my best friend and say like, yeah, or I forget how, just something like that. I was just like, wow. So anyway, so that's what happened with my mother. I have told her many times, I would love to have a relationship with you. If you're concerned that there's another woman in the world that could say there isn't. You literally got everything you wanted. Even with me finding out, I'm telling you, I'm okay with it. I want to share this with you. Like, do you want to know anything about these people? And she just was never interested, and the truth is she's a very sick woman. She's a very sick woman. I found out after I was adopted, almost everything she had ever told me my whole life was not true. She said she passed the bar in New York on her first time. She dropped out of high school at 10th grade and became a prostitute.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Yeah, I found all of this out from her sister after the adoption. She said, like, yeah, we always figured because Dina just showed up one day with a baby. And yeah, so it's been a crazy life. It's been a crazy life, but it's been beautiful. I say all the time, like, damn, I've been in so many fucking movies, and my life is also a movie, and
Yeah.
we're in develop. We're in talk. There's something happening.
Well, I hope it works out. It should.
There's something happening with my life story. Yes. And and then now I live in LA with my incredible boyfriend. I say that the universe saved the best for last. I think if I had met him a minute sooner or even in the 90s, it would not have worked out. I met him exactly when the universe knew I was ready. He is an incredible man, truly. He is kind and loving and accepts me as I am, which is a lot. I'm a lot, and we relate to each other on a level that I have not been able to do in a relationship before because he was on one of the biggest shows of the 90s. Sabrina the Teenage Witch is, I mean, it's iconic, and he's Harvey Kinkle. I mean, he's everything, and he was definitely probably a million girls' first crush in the 90s and boys, and we don't take any of that for granted. I don't take any of the fan base that I have for granted and vice versa. And as you know, and most people know, as when this comes out, I just started a podcast. And
yeah, tell everybody that your show and
Yeah.
where to find you and how to connect with you and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and like you were saying, yeah, I've been in long-term recovery now for 20 years. I've had slips along the way for sure. So it hasn't been like in the 12-step tradition because I changed my sobriety date in COVID, but it is what it is. It's okay. And I just want everyone to know that you don't lose that knowledge or
Totally.
the power
Totally.
that you gain, because we do get our power back. We get our power back after, I don't want to get too 12-steppy on people, but like truly we get our power back after the third step. So yeah, I just, like we said, it's so ingrained in us, babe, that it's like keep coming back. No shit. Yeah. We know.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
And I get to work I've been working in treatment for 20 years now. And currently, I'm the executive director of business development at Valiant Behavioral Health. And I'm the president of WAT, which is the Women's Association of Addiction Treatment. It's one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the mental health and treatment space. You know, we've been around a long time, 25 years. A lot of professional women have advanced in their careers through this organization, which I'm really proud of. And I've been president for like 8 years. I was vice president for a couple years before that. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career, truly. And then aside from that, like I said, I started my podcast finally, and it's called We're Still Here, Babe. It comes out every Wednesday. We drop our guest reveal every Friday. I think when people first heard, oh, Natanya's making a podcast, or like, you know, on socials and stuff, that the natural assumption is that this would be a 90s podcast, right? Or a mental health podcast. And there are so many components of that, sure, but it's neither one of those things, because I, you know, I have friends that transcend much past the 90s, and the stuff that they're doing currently is what's really exciting and change making, you know. But I will say, at least for the first season, it's like every iconic 90s person you can think of. I couldn't get around it, you know. And I'm so lucky that all
That's
my
cool
friends,
though.
it's really cool. I'm really, really lucky that all my friends showed up for me in the way that they did. We got to premiere with Virginia Madsen. It just doesn't get much more iconic than that. And she's like family to me. And I'm just very, very proud of this podcast. You know, as well as anybody, how hard it is to create a podcast. And it took us 9 months of development till we got to the point of like pushing record.
Dude,
And now
but that's good though that you had a team. I started with a phone recording on a table between me and
God
friends.
bless. Yeah. I mean, I almost did too, truly. You know,
You
and
did
I
it
just,
easier though. Trust
I
me.
did it. I did it a little
I've
easier.
I've done it in the stupidest, cheapest, most bootstrappy way ever. My audience can tell you. The audio still sounds fucking weird when I do.
But I do it on Zoom too. I mean, I do. I did just get a mic, but anyway, you get it.
Regardless, yes, we're
Yeah,
still here, babe. Is the podcast.
We're still here, babe. And in this first season, I think week after week, your mouth is going to drop to the floor, you know, and I can back that up because I have the app. I have the episodes.
Yeah,
we somehow filmed 25 episodes in 2 months, and
that's
you know,
amazing. And it was
yeah,
nice of you to fucking get ahead of it too. I'm
that's
never
right.
ahead of it. Like this is
Yeah.
gonna release next Thursday.
It's gonna help a lot.
'Cause
Yeah,
I'm an idiot.
we have 15. We have 15 more booked. Like this weekend, where
Oh, cool.
I think, when is this gonna come out?
Literally
We-
next Thursday. 'Cause
Okay, so
I'm an
never mind.
idiot.
I'm not gonna say the names though. But this Sunday we're, you know, interviewing some huge, huge people.
Oh, cool. Okay.
You know, and it's not about who they are necessarily, but it's about who they are to certain people. So if somebody is like Virginia Madsen, for example, only because that's the only episode out, you know, I mean, there's definitely a decade and a generation of women that heard her episode that healed a little bit in one way or another. So for me, it's not about the fact that it's Virginia Madsen. It's about the fact that I know she's going to say something that's going to heal somebody's heart a little bit, because I handpick these guests. I'm curating everything. I'm the director, you know, and I know these people on such a personal, deep level. I'm so grateful for that I just instinctually know what somebody will be able to share with the audience. And that's my hope. Will this turn into some sort of a 90s podcast? Probably. You know, I probably can't avoid it. That's my legacy and I'm proud of it. But, you know, this is a deep podcast, and the mission of it is to help people feel less alone. And that's it. And I promised myself at the beginning of the journey that if I helped just one person heal a little bit, that was going to have to be good enough for me. And it is. It absolutely is. So, yeah, but I mean, please tune in though.
Oh,
Our
for sure, of
shows-
course.
Yeah. Our Instagram is We're Still Here, Babe. Our YouTube, Spotify, all the same. All the links are in my bio at Natanya Ross on Instagram. I'm on TikTok too. And so yeah, those are my socials. And then me and my cast from The Secret World of Alex Mack. This is very exciting. For our 30-year anniversary, we have finally been invited to 90s Con.
Oh,
So
fun.
yes, so we will be there for our 30
Did you say 30 year?
I did. I did say that. It's gross. I know. It's rough. So, but we're gonna be back together again. We have a big
That's awesome.
panel on Saturday, and yeah, it's gonna be sick. I mean, they have NSYNC, they have the Backstreet Boys, they have us. Yeah, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, Super Random, Seventh Heaven, Hocus Pocus, Melrose Place, 90210, Boy Meets World. It goes on and on and on, and it's just an incredibly iconic weekend. And then also, it was just announced that I was offered and accepted a role in a new horror film coming out called Longoria, starring Eric Roberts and, Natanya Ross.
Oh, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah. So
that is awesome.
there's some stuff, but it's, the podcast is the big thing, and I'm really excited. I'm excited to have you on it because
I'd love to.
I want your
I'd
whole
love to.
story. I'm intrigued. I want to know so much more about your story now.
I was a fall down gutter hype junkie, also homeless for a long time, the whole nine.
Crazy. And you live in Tennessee now?
No, San Diego.
Oh, San Diego. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm in
cool.
San Diego. I'm in North County. Yeah.
So we'll get together for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I love your
dude.
podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time so much. I'm glad we were able to make it work. I'm glad you were available today. I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to send out a fucking Hail Mary. Maybe she's available this week.
It worked so perfectly. I know. Yeah.
So
that was
thank
awesome.
you so much, Natanya. I'm so glad that we got to chat.